It's a high energy show. We never really leave the stage. When we do leave, it's maybe max 20 seconds. And like getting used to singing with handheld microphones and like switching hands, just all of that kind of choreo singing nonstop all the time. It was really, I think for a lot of us, just about like building that stamina while also like, oh yeah, we can look at the audience and like, this is like a pop concert. We have to have that.
Costumes are designed by Gabriella Slade, and they are like a flexy, hard plastic that allows us to move. But they are designed for our bodies, and they're beautiful. Yeah. They're absolutely stunning.
They're stunning.
Okay, I was in final callbacks for Jesus Christ Superstar, the tour that's out right now, and my body was hurting, and it's one of those things where I left the callback and I was like, I don't know if this show's for me, I don't know if I could do that to my body. And I was walking up 8th Avenue. I had just passed the Brooks, actually, and I was on my way to Dig. I was starving, and I got an email from my agent that said, congratulations, you've been cast as Anne of Cleves. And I collapsed. My knees came from up under. I just was like, oh my God, my knees completely buckled.
At least I'll speak for myself. I didn't really know what the show was. It was a hit in London, but it hadn't really blown up here yet, which it did eventually on TikTok.
Yeah.
But at the time, in early 2019, I was like, this sounds cool. Sure, I'll go to Chicago for a summer and do this musical. We really didn't have a concept of what it was or how big it was. And it wasn't until we were in it for a few months that we were like, oh, people like this. It's big.
My costume is 12 pounds, actually.
Hers is the heaviest.
Yeah.
I think mine was the lightest. Mm-hmm. But I also was the only one wearing pants. So that created its own, obstacle in itself. Right.
I definitely felt a lot of pressure when I first got this part, and I think if we had opened originally, I'm not sure all of this would have happened, because I allowed that pressure to really take control of me that first run in 2020, and I was very scared, but something magical happened through all the grief and the pain with the pandemic, and that was our company became so close and lifted each other up in such a really profound way, and we all expanded in our roles. And coming back, all that fear and anxiety around just playing the part really left me, because just to have your job back and just to be here again was so meaningful, and I think that opened me up.
And to be able to sort of stretch your creative muscles and do a character like Clyde in this parade of extravagant, fun clothes, and then to do somebody like Jason, and to sort of get into the details of this man who's basically he's homeless and living in a tent, and maybe he's duct taped his shoes together, and that's and then there's Ron and Kara and all the different. It was amazing to be able to do all that. It was a great challenge, a welcome challenge.
We just accepted the award for Unique Theatrical Experience for producing Seven Deadly Sins down in the Meatpacking during the summer of 21.
I remember it.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. I had a lot of fun, actually.
Excellent.
Good.
So, whose idea was this?
So back in the dark days of 2020, our friend Michelle Hausman in South Beach on Lincoln Road came up with this idea of creating COVID-safe theater using empty storefronts, putting productions behind glass, and putting audience in open air, socially distanced on the street. And so that was the winter of 2020. It was a mega hit for Miami. And Moises Kaufman, our co-founder of Tectonic Theater Project, was one of the commissioned playwrights for that piece. He and Michelle are all in the family, and Michelle said, do that in New York, make your Tectonic version. So we started making our Tectonic version, talking to some playwrights that we wanted to commission, these 10-minute plays. And then we called our friends Jamie and Gigi from Madison Wells, and we said, we can't do this without you. You've got to get in here and join us on this journe. And they said, ridiculously, yes. I don't know why.
Not ridiculously.
Yes, it was great. It was a bonkers idea.
I think the hardest part about it was just memorizing such a colossal monologue, and that was pretty overwhelming at times. But
I was challenged about American Buffalo. I think what was key for me was for it to feel accurate to the period, however, not to feel stale or dated, and that it felt like it had new life in there. And so that was very important for me, that it didn't feel like a historical and stale piece, and wanting to feel like current and fresh, but still acknowledging the time period that the men were existing in.
Glinda really, it's the essence of her character that makes her who she is. It's her journey that makes her who he is. It's not about how she looks or what her voice sounds like. It's not about the tricks and the whatever. There's an essence to who she is.
Absolutely exciting, and to get to play a role that so many incredible women have played before me is an incredible honor. So.
I mean, it's a huge play that spans all time and no time.
And the play is a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, the play is a challenge, and the space, the Beaumont is giant, and small doesn't work in there. So I think it's about, I mean, the biggest challenge for me was to tell this huge epic story on a grand scale, but still allow the humans to be the focus. So it's always it was a big game of like, how big can we go, how large can we go, how operatic can we go, but still be able to hear the words. And thanks to Palmer Heffernan, our sound designer, you could hear the words. But yeah, that was, I mean, just the content of it and the scale of it was the biggest challenge.
Because from the beginning, we were really making sure that we were looking for people that were passionate, that were team players. As you can tell from the show, I mean, they were literally on top of each other, making that dinosaur come to life. One person was inside of that mastodon, making that come to life. So, I mean, physical people and talented people and imaginative people.
You know, Selling Couple, I was doing a reading of a play like 7 years ago, and the director said, I think you should read this play, I think it's really special. And I went and did a reading of it with 3 other people, and I loved the play, and the playwright loved me, and we sort of, she stuck by me and I with her for about 7 years. And then we did it at Williamstown a couple years ago, and we started working on it at Playwrights Horizons when the pandemic first hit. And they stayed true to it, and so we were the first production back in the fall at Playwrights this year.
Because that math and that joy was already living inside of that music. So it was just a matter of going in there and finding what joy they built into the music to begin with, and then expanding on that for whatever the emotional content of that particular scene was. Lynn Nottage was the mastermind behind each one of these moments that were crafted to tell Michael's life, and to go into each one of those moments with someone so incredible as Lynn, to investigate what is this emotional moment that we're moving into, and how can we use this incredibly well-loved song to tell that story. And so we arrived at moments like, for example, in our show, I'll Be There is one of the songs that's told from Katherine Jackson to Little Michael. Creates an entirely different interpretation of that song. And so to go into the orchestration and decide what instruments would play what in order to tell that story, again, not terribly difficult, because there was such a joy, and almost like the songs were speaking to us as they were going by.
The director specifically would tell us, don't play the end of the play. We, who already know how history unfolds, we know how the play is going to end, but as the characters on stage, you don't know that. So you have to very specifically understand that this is what the information they had at this given moment. So that was sort of an interesting sort of double perspective there.
On the time that we are in.
Right. But on the flip side, having the benefit of, we can read books about these people and understand who they were and understand what their lives are like. Ultimately, I find that great. Having so much source material.
The thing about it is, it's just so fulfilling to be able to bring this story that so many people have never heard of to an audience in New York City. It's been so appreciative. It's
You're bringing a show that's had like such a long.
I saw a documentary at the Public Theater quite a few years ago. It was 4 hours of German documentary making with subtitles, which should have been completely off-putting. But instead, I found it so incredibly compelling, and I couldn't imagine how I didn't know this story. When I soon realized that the reason why I didn't know the story is the story. and that just inspired me to tell it. Everything that happens on the stage is true. Some of it happens in a different chronology. For dramatic purposes, I moved some things around, but the events of the that happen in the show, right down to their tuxedos getting stolen, it's all true, and we fashioned it into a show. Me too.
Yeah, well, I was very excited to be here to accept on behalf of really everybody who worked on Merry Wives, which I happened to have the great honor of adapting for Shakespeare in the Park last summer. It was the first, Shakespeare in the Park back after having. Thank you so much. Having had to shut down for a year for the first time in its history. And so we wanted to make it a big and beautiful, celebratory, fun time for people to come back to the theater. And I think we achieved that.
I think what was successful is that when we start our process, we always start with a workshop. So it's not about creating choreography, it's really like a workshop, right? So we start with a workshop of Irish dance, like traditional Irish dance. We learn Kayleys, we learn skip 2-3s, we learn 7s. Jalon led us through, and myself, but led us through dances of the diaspora, right? So we learned about the origins of different dances from Africa, as well as how dance morphed and changed once it came to America, once we were on the plantation as slaves, and how you had the jig and the buck and the chicken and all of these dances. So we start with a workshop, and with that workshop, we learn the dance. We also learn the history of the dance, and we also encourage actors, movers, dancers, it doesn't matter, but dance is in our souls, to understand that this is part of you, this is in your DNA, and it's not to be afraid of it, it's to embrace it. So I think that's how we got them to dance. First, teaching them the skill, and also teaching them the confidence and understanding that it's already in you. So I think that was the first step. Yeah.
And then after that, it's about deepening their connectedness to the movement, and also like where the movement came from. So for the Irish tradition, it's the land of Ireland itself and the natural elements as they move across the land. And trying to get people to understand that without going to Ireland is the test of the choreographer.